All right, what's going on, everyone? This is part 3 of our series. We're going to go through some basic herb preparation today. We're going to talk about things that we can use those specific herbs for, and we're also going to talk about cleaning, again, kitchen utilization, and just a couple of the basics. All right, so let's get started. So here we've got basil, we've got green onion or scallion, got some rosemary, some thyme, parsley, and cilantro. So first off, just a little disclaimer, everything that we're using today has already been washed. So the first step you want to take when you're using your fresh herbs is get them to the sink, get them in some water. Hot, cold water is fine, a little bit of vinegar in the water is fine. Some people use vinegar, vegetable washes, especially with everything that's going on in the world today. So it's up to your personal preference, but I definitely always use water. So all right, let's begin. So first one we're gonna do, let's probably start with our parsley. So with parsley, you've usually got like a trifecta of leaves there, right? So the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna clean your parsley. You're gonna take the leaves off your parsley, just like that. Reserve the stems, reserve them for stock or any of your sauces. Oops. Again, you're gonna just clean a bunch right like that. Out of all these, this is probably one of the more time-consuming ones. So in the interest of time, I've already cleaned a bunch more, but I just wanted to show you guys how to clean your stock and save your stems. So, got some already pre-picked there. Again, get a good grip on your knife. You want to pay attention to two things. So you've got your right hand grip on your knife and what you're doing with your left hand. So it's important what you're doing with your left hand because you don't want to cut your left hand with this knife. When I'm chopping herbs, I use what's called a pinch grip. So I'm pinching right above the bolster of the knife. That's different than just grabbing your whole handle like that. That's kind of a different application. This is a little more delicate. So again, when you're chopping your herbs, you want to use the belly. This is the belly of your blade, this curved section, belly of your blade. And you're just going to do a rolling motion. Just chop your herbs. You kind of want to turn this into a little bit of a process. So think of your first couple steps as more of a rough chop. You're just kind of breaking it down. Our table's a little rattling for chopping here. You're going to start to see that kind of break down. So if I'm doing a nice soup, I might use a thicker, more coarse texture like that. If it's for a sauce or a pasta dish. I'm going to take it down a little bit finer, really get it minced. All right, so that's how I would prepare and utilize parsley right there. So next we're going to work on basil, all right? So this is your basil plant. This has been picked, obviously. Again, you can kind of see you've got larger leaves here. You've also got these little small leaves. So when you're picking your basil, the first thing you do is go through and you pick all those leaves off the stalk and stem. It's your nice big basil leaf there. Again, reserve your stems. You can use them for sauces, stocks, soup, anything. All right, so the technique that we're going to use for chopping up this basil is actually called a chiffonade. Chiffonade is like a really thin strip. So the way that you would go about doing that, you chiffonade basil, you chiffonade spinach. But the way you go about doing it is I usually start and I grab a bunch of the larger leaves, kind of overlap them on top of each other. Just like that. And you're gonna kind of make yourself kind of a little bundle here. So then I start grabbing the rest of the small leaves and start packing them kind of inside there. Oops. Once you get to this point, you're gonna set it down on your cutting board. You're gonna try to roll it over top of itself. And that just holds all your leaves together. And then with a really sharp kitchen knife, you're gonna just take really thin little slices here, all the way down. Again, you wanna keep in mind your back finger here, your back hand, left hand, or right hand if you're left-handed. So the thing you want to remember with your offhand is that you just got to keep your fingertips out of the way, right? So the way that you go about doing that is anytime you're holding food with your left hand, you're going to use what's called the claw. It's kind of what it's referenced to in the food industry. Basically, you're going to grab all your food with this claw form, right? So you keep your your thumb tip back, and that's to prevent any of your fingertips from coming underneath the blade of that knife, right? So when you're using your claw, again, just like I did that chiffonade, you're resting the knife on your knuckle and using that as a guide to cut. So this is a pretty Italian cuisine use there. You leave it at that step. You can also mince it down finer, just depending on what recipe you're using it in. Right, moving on. Next we've got, let's go through cilantro here. So an authentic Mexican cuisine, they use the whole entire stalk bunch, right? So again, start by rolling all the cilantro very tight, just like that. Start at the very end, again with fingertips back. You want to slice as thin as you can, again, while trying not to cut yourself. Now, when you start hearing that you're getting into those stems, that's when you want to take your slices extra thin, right? So you're using the stem, but you want it to be very, 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 very thinly cut. Almost to a shave if you can get it down there. Again, just kind of reposition your bunch, keep everything tight. And I typically pick out some of those large chunks of stem. You don't want those in your dish. And again, you can either keep it in a rough chop like that or break it down just a little bit more, just whatever you prefer. All right, next on the list, we've got rosemary, we've got thyme. So thyme and rosemary are very similar. They use them for a lot of roasting, braising in braising dishes, soups. So for those type of applications, a lot of times you can just drop these whole sprigs in whatever you're working on, right? If not, you're gonna take it down a little further, right? So if we're gonna break it down, say if you're making a stuffing, you don't want the stem in there. You need it in an application where you're not gonna pull the stem back out of it. You just take the thyme sprig and kind of just strip the leaves off the stalk, just like that. Depending on the type of dish you're making, you can leave your leaves of the thyme whole, or I usually try to mince them down a little bit because they can sometimes get tough or caught in your teeth, just depending on what you're making. So again, just do a nice little mince on those. Rosemary, same thing. Pull your leaves off and chop it, right? So the stalk on the rosemary is a little bit more tough, so you wanna make sure you get all those little stems and stalk out of there, right? Now again, if you're, depending on what application you're using, if you want to pull the whole, if it's a roast, put your whole stalk in there, because when you're done cooking, you're going to pull that stalk back out of there. So if you're not doing that and you're making like a soup, right? You don't want these pine needle looking things in your soup, right? So again, you would probably mince these up as well. So if you're doing roasted rosemary potatoes, something like that, I'd take and break your rosemary down. So you've got your green onion, and again, this has already been washed. Just kind of take some time to clean it, pull off any old or rotten film or layers off the bottom of your stalk there. Kind of get rid of that. First thing you're going to do is take all your root ends, clip off your root, and you're taking off. You're not leaving any onion on that root, so you're just going down all the way to root. So you got two parts of this onion. You've got the green part, this half, and you got the white part. So this onion gets stronger as it goes down to the white. So when you're cutting the white, you're gonna slice it a little bit thinner than when you get up to the green section. So for my preference, when I'm cooking, I typically use the lower, stronger part in the cooking process, and I might use the green part when you get more into like your finishing of the dish. So I just, depending on how comfortable you feel, you can work with more stalks in this, but this is a good way to show today. So start on your white end and just do a nice, very thin slice all the way up the white section of the stalk. So that's how you would slice the white end. And when you start getting up to the green, this is typically what I use, like say for garnish, or a stir fry, or something like a noodle dish, cut a little bit bigger. So I kind of go in a bias and get nice, real nice, long, thin pieces. Kind of on a long, thin diagonal, right? So that's what you're looking at there. All right, so I know that was a lot of information for today, but that's the last fresh herb that we've got. Again, if you have any more questions, please reach out to me. Or for recipe ideas, reach out as well. But thank you, and that's all we got for today.